Good evening, good morning if you happen to be watching this later, good afternoon if you happen to be watching this later. And guess what, Jokoistas? Tasha's back. Hi, Tasha.
Hi, Yusuf. How are you? I think you're glad to have me back
I am
to
glad to
see
have you back. Yes.
in the panel next to you. Hello,
Yes.
everyone. And so we are coming on this evening. We always acknowledge the ancestors and our personal lineage that have made us the people we are. Uh, we always acknowledge the African family lineage and the contributions that our people have made toward pushing back against this great, at least 600-year scourge of devastation on humanity. Um, we have done our part, um, contributed our share of valiance and ingenuity, and we always acknowledge that any work that we do as African descended people, we do it the hospitality of the First Nations people um, here in the LA Basin, the Tongva people. We are an unceded Tongva lands, and we know that um, the ancestors of that allied group of people um, allow us to do what we do, right? It is at their
That's right.
hospitality, is in their uh, uh, homelands that we proceed with any work that we attempt to do on for the liberation of African peoples and oppressed people globally. And so we wrap that up quickly, and we think we're going to continue with that with that model, brevity. Um, because we want to get to our small rant. We're not going to be on long tonight, but we
Right.
do have a small rant. And good brother Yusuf, since you brought it to us and you said, we got a rant here,
Yeah.
give us some background.
Well, it's the news of the week, right? I mean, just, it's that there have been warnings about the creeping fascism, etc. And the fascism is here, right? And um, events of this week are just further evidence of the kind of fascism that the current regime is implementing. And we unite with, right, the recognition that the fascist activities, right, fascist structures, fascist practices are the practices of colonialism, right? It's how the colonized world has been treated, and as articulated by Aimé Césaire and so many others, but particularly Aimé Césaire in his discourse on colonialism. Um, Fascism is colonialism coming home, right? It's the repression of the natives, the repression of the colonized people, and in a situation like the United States, the suppression, repression, exploitation of the internal colonies, right, the domestic colonies, reaching into the neighborhoods of the descendants of the settlers, right? Reaching into the neighborhoods of the preferred citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's here, right? And it's been here, and it's been called what it is. Um, George Jackson uses the language, right, in his work "Blood in My Eye," right? The fascist United States, and um, you know, uh, those of us who've been in struggle for freedom, liberation from the colonial clutches of the United States have long recognized these things. But again, some of the things that happened this week um, that made me want to get on and talk about this. One, just as our title says, are we paying close enough attention? What just happened in Texas with these outrageous sentencings for the ICE protesters. So that was this week, right? And whenever that sentencing came down, I think I saw the article
Mhm.
yesterday or Tuesday.
This week. Hmm.
And then today, right? Just happened to catch this commentary, actually an MS Now report
Hmm.
on a Stephen Miller driven memo to the Department of Justice about I'm trying to find the right wording, right? Um,
Hmm.
Essentially, an attack on the rights of the disabled, right? The rights of folks
Hmm.
with disabilities, and particularly an attack on the funding for the community services that
Hmm.
are available that allow disabled people to live with dignity in their homes and
Hmm.
to live a full lives, right? Full independent lives. Um, to not have to go into institutions because that is what's being recommended. That instead of supporting the funding for community services, the assessment should be made of whether or not those with disabilities and however that is going to be defined
Hmm.
um, be sent to facilities, right?
And I pulled up
Hospitals.
some deets on that. Go ahead, and I pulled up some details on this
Yeah, yeah.
stuff.
So go
Yeah.
ahead, share the details, right? So but that's what got us here, right? This news, these 100-year sentences, and now this eugenics memo, right? So go for it.
This eugenics memo. So what this is a and that what we've got at the bottom there is the MS Now interview that Yusuf was referring to, in 8 minutes of gold, right? And more outrage and disbelief, right? And so what this is the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel. It's an opinion. They issued this memo, right? Was an opinion titled "The Application of the Rehabilitation Act and Americans with Disabilities Act to State-Funded Community Services." Um, Distributed on the 18th. And this memo came out on the 18th. Um, and so what this memo does, or what this opinion does, and then first of all, these kinds of opinions. I'm looking for my. Come on now, take me to my note. Take me to my note. are are legally binding. Okay, they are legally binding in that such opinions carry legal authority over the executive branch, doesn't bind federal courts or state governments, doesn't bind them, but it does give authority, right? It
Mhm,
does give authority. Um, They have definitive legal guidance for all
mhm,
federal agencies. It's an issuance of that. Compliance is mandatory. All executive branch employees and agency officials must follow OLC conclusions, and officials who act in good faith according to an OLC memo are insulated from administrative sanctions, internal administrative sanctions. So if right, and this is really, it's just part of this pattern, right, of
mhm.
a built-in process of um, these impunity, right? This
Exactly.
impunity
You
outlets,
can do
right?
these things, and you will not be held accountable.
And you won't be held accountable, right? So it's this, how another way in which the executive branch can wield essentially
Mhm,
non consensual. We'll call it non-consensual because it's not extra legal as such, but it's non-processional. But they can, like he can whip out certain executive orders and certain,
Mm-hmm.
right, these kinds of
Right.
things that have a a certain amount of effect, and it's
Mm-hmm.
understood that there have been um, um, no balance of power processes applied, right?
Right.
So it says federal and state courts are not bound by OLC interpretations. Courts can completely overturn, reject, or ignore an OLC opinion if a
Mm-hmm.
lawsuit challenges it. So a lot of people are challenging this OLC with lawsuits. People are on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no direct power over states, right? An OLC memo cannot force state governments to change their laws, but it changes how federal agencies enforce laws against states. It can halt federal litigation. The memo can effectively stop the Department of Justice from suing states over community integration enforcement. Uh, for instance, the federal agencies can use the memo to alter how they distribute grants or monitor state compliance. So this becomes another kind of, like, all of this, there's no forced, none of this is compulsory, all, except through the executive branch, and courts can resist and all of this. It's one of those opening the door mechanisms, right?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
the
Opening the door,
same,
creating, the conditions
creating the conditions for people who are in place to do what they want
and the permission
to do what they
structures.
want to
Yes.
do.
Yes.
Permission structure, right? It's a
Right.
permission structure. So the what it argues is that, well, first let's talk about what it attacks, right? So there is, what is it, Olmsted v. LC, whoever LC was, or LC, whatever entity LC was the 1999 Supreme Court decision that,
Mm-hmm.
and this is only 1999, mind you, let's say it again,
Right.
1999, right?
So what's
That,
that, 37 years ago?
right, right. Okay.
Or
We
no,
are
no, less than that, 27 years ago. Yeah,
27 years ago.
27 years.
Right. We're talking 27 years ago, right? That in that decision, the Supreme Court decision, they ruled that unjustified institutionalization of people with
Mm-hmm.
disabilities is a form of discrimination prohibited by the ADA, American with Disabilities Act.
Exactly.
The ruling establishes that states must provide community based services for individuals with disabilities when such services are appropriate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll read a little bit more detail, of that. Something that should resonate. This Olmsted decision has been called the Brown v. Board of Education for Disability Rights.
Right. Absolutely.
So this is a theme emerges here. And this is
Mm-hmm.
all about this reversal. This is right, because we're still,
Exactly. It's all part of the reversal, the retrenchment, right? The take back.
yes, yes, of all of these kinds of the fundamental human rights liberations, which they are saying has been one of the errors of the post-war period, all of this
Right.
human rights focus and all of this human rights thinking, right,
Mm-hmm.
has been an error, as they advance philosophical discussions and religious discussions about the uh, inappropriateness of not envy, empathy, right?
Right.
Notions of toxic empathy and
So-called
all of
toxic
these kinds of
empathy,
things.
and
It's
yes.
all of a piece, right? It's all of
Yes,
a
it
piece.
is.
But this is the Brown v. Board of Education for Disability Rights, and what it provides for integration mandate. States provide services in the most
Right.
integrated setting appropriate to the needs of qualified individuals with disabilities. So what does this mean in our day-to-day lives, right? This is it preventing that one of the things that stands out to me, because I'm in schools all the time and
Exactly.
see young people who are integrated
Exactly.
into general, right? One of the things it does
Precisely.
is normalizes the presence, the ability limitations, and actual abilities of people who are in a generally disabled category. It prevents that
Whatever their
stigmatization,
right, exactly. Yeah.
right?
Whatever the disability is, right? Exactly. There.
Yes, whatever it is, there, and able, and yes, it is absolutely a practice of collectivism. It is absolutely a practice of empathy and observation and all of these things,
And
depending on the
democratic
level
access, right?
and
Democratic access to
democratic
things like education.
to things like education, to things like education, right? To things
And,
like
you know, well, jobs, right?
the,
To the
the
labor force.
ability to prepare to work, yes, and self-support and
And
move toward
self-support.
autonomy and be in that,
Exactly.
so, right? And
Exactly.
again, this safeguard, this prophylactic against demonizing and dehumanizing and all, right, because when you are present with, when you are in company with the quote unquote other, you those definitions dissolve, those
Right.
notions
They
dissolve.
stop
It
being
can't be
other,
sustained.
right?
They
Or
can't be sustained.
so differently other, right? I mean, yeah, it just
Absolutely.
becomes they're
It's
just
normal.
thank you. Just
It's
other members of
normalized.
the community,
Just
right?
other
And
members of the
the
community.
community,
Exactly. Not the other, capital D,
not
capital O,
the other, not
other
some
members
exactly
of the
of
community.
the human
Right?
community.
Up, say
And
it.
you
Say it.
use the word integrated, right? And yes, you know,
Yes.
which is to make whole, right? So that's part of
Yes.
the community being
Yes.
whole, right?
Yes.
Those members of our communities that, again, whatever the various disabilities are, and so what does that mean? If there's an executive in a state that wants to move that funding away from supporting something like the Students with Disabilities Center at Santa Monica College, so the hearing impaired students can now no longer, or the college can now no longer provide um, sign language interpreters, right, for the students in the class.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
I think about
Hmm.
the one of the autistic students that I've had
Hmm.
in class,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
who and I don't want to say that she was incommunicative, because she did communicate. She just needed
Hmm.
technology to communicate, right? and
Right.
and an
Right.
interpreter, right? So she
Right.
was communicative,
Right.
and the college was able to provide the resources. That gets taken away, and then that young woman is
Yeah.
now isolated at home,
Yes.
and can't get to, with her disability, with her
Yeah.
different ability, able to integrate herself into the classroom.
Yes.
She was in a creative writing class with me.
Hmm. Hmm.
In fact, the creative writing class and the critical analysis of literature class, for both
Hmm.
of those classes, my final project for the students is a group project. And she was
Hmm.
able to participate in both of those classes with her groups fully. It was no big deal, right? It wasn't
Hmm.
a big deal to the students. She was
Hmm.
just another student, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And that's
Right.
what's lost
Right.
if you
And
have an executive who wants to pull those
right.
funds.
Right. The retrenchment, just the regression, the backwardness, just the right, and the ways in which, and here we're talking about this word integration, right? This word integration uh, uh, surfaces here as well,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Talking about things that, as you just said, yeah, it works. Everybody is comfortable, everybody's fine. All that people all that's happening is that people are learning that there are other people in the community, human community, who have different kinds of abilities. That's all that's happening, is
Different kinds of ability.
literally learning, acceptance, sharing, to the point where it's really not, it's not even a thought. No one's even having a conversation
It becomes
about that anymore.
unremarkable.
It's unremarkable.
It
It's
becomes
unremarkable,
unremarkable,
as it should be, right?
as it
As it
should
should
be,
be,
as it should
right?
be. Exactly.
So, yes, integration mandate. Folks need to be integrated with the rest of the public. The
Yeah.
other part, the right to community living, that individuals have a legal right to live in community settings rather than being isolated in nursing
Rather
homes,
than institutions.
psychiatric hospitals, or
Yes.
institutions. You
Right.
know, this is
And
profound. I mean,
in their community, as you said, right? Not because I can hear
yes,
somebody say, well, can't you form community, in the institution?
right,
No.
right.
I
Isn't
mean,
that
right. And that depends on who's running the
yeah,
institution and how they want
exactly?
to organize it. But the point is to be able to live in your community
In your
at home
community, and
and,
as part of the general, part of the general public, having
part of the
access
general
to
public.
what the public commons, under your own, as much of your own autonomy as you can express.
As
Is that
any of
not the
us.
democratic ideal? Is
Exactly.
that not right? So yeah,
Exactly.
it's fundamentally a fundamental insult to autonomy,
Yeah.
to the coercion itself, because no one
Yeah.
is, very few people are going to choose um, to be coerced into institutional living,
Right.
right?
Right.
And a lot of that also has to do with, and this is not making space for reformist conversation, because what's understood, like with all conditions of regulation or deregulation, and right, these kinds of things, is that when these institutions are are formed, when people do not have this kind of autonomy, institutions tend to deteriorate. They don't tend to, right, and this is certainly not a politic represented by this particular administration, certainly not a politic that's interested in regulation
Or
and
properly funding these
properly
institutions, actually
funding
supporting them.
all
Yeah,
of that,
exactly.
everything
Exactly.
everything that has been constructed, right, on behalf of folk who are uh, arguably the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, they get to live like the human beings that they are. And anyway, this part is just, it's the epitome. It's just the
It is.
epitome
So,
of
um,
the evilness of this. Let me go ahead and wrap this up so you can move on to the next piece. But these these key points. So what the memo argues, and yes, state accountability, that states have to maintain uh, a working and effective working plan for supporting folks in community, that it's voluntary, that people are voluntarily in community and also not being forced to be in community if they prefer to be in an appropriate institution. Those are also choices. Again, this autonomy notion, that and yes, all of this protection against institutionalization. And so what this OLC argues is that, let me find it as I'm scrolling around.
well, while you're scrolling, I just wanted to
Go
make the
ahead.
point that, again, in the title, we wanted to point out the eugenics of it, right? Because this is
Yes,
another one of these attacks, or
yes,
what I should say, um, it's a if not explicit, certainly an implicit elevation of some notion of the perfected body or the perfect body, right? and once again following the German fascist of the 1930s and 40s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, of eliminating the disabled population.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a- a-
Which,
One
mm-hmm,
of the other ways of
mm-hmm,
culling the population, right? That
mm-hmm,
Stephen Miller seems to think is, there
mm-hmm,
are too many people in the United States. But yeah, go
mm-hmm.
ahead.
Which of course which is what they borrowed from the Americans. They borrowed that notion
Eugenicist.
and
Mhm.
adopted that notion and the practices, the notion of eliminating, this notion of
What is it? Racial
eliminating the
hygiene?
disabled. Yes, racial hygiene,
Yeah.
right? Purity and
Yeah.
hygiene, eliminating that which is
Eliminating
defective and thereby,
the feeble-minded, the feeble-bodied,
right. This was the first target.
the
These folks
defective.
were the first
Yeah.
target. And as were the notions, as was, and I didn't have time to pull the citation for this, but a person who is a very renowned authoritative researcher specifically in this area about the imitation of the US and the US further
Hmm.
uh, relative to the ideology of eugenics, and then the US further complicity, support, vigorous and robust of
Robust, exactly.
the right of the regimes of the Third Reich's um, uh, promotion of, right, this exercise of elimination, right, the
Mhm.
exercise of elimination, um, with all the
And
support.
those are values that continue to, even if somehow submerged or indirect, there's certainly values that have continued to inform U.S. culture in the post World War II era. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so this, this resurfing is, bottom line, it's all American,
It's
even
all
though they've
American.
made
Yeah.
uh, the National Socialists in
Well,
Germany
I mean,
the
they should.
poster the
They
poster
should though.
children. I'm not
They,
arguing that they
well,
shouldn't.
no. They should look. I mean, I can appreciate that, right? It's like looking on your child with pride. You know, they did
Mm,
better than us, right?
mm,
So, and
mm.
we can learn. We can learn from those we taught.
Uh,
So I think that's actually quite appropriate, right? The German fascists did absolutely, and the South African fascists, right? They learned quite well from their U.S. teachers, and now the teacher is learning from the student.
well said. And
That's
so
all.
this
Yeah.
my last comment. What this OLC argues, right, is that this Olmsted decision, Supreme Court decision, has been widely misinterpreted. They're
Mm-hmm.
arguing that it's been misinterpreted. They got it wrong, and actually asserting that it didn't create any statutory. Well, maybe this is accurate because what they're looking for is a loophole. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
create a statutory integration mandate, quote unquote, requiring states to provide community based care. The document further contends that Congress never intended to create this mandate, like they care about what Congress intends to mandate. But anyway, creates this mandate, therefore invalidating federal agency regulations that enforce community integration. So, loophole, working some kind of technical loophole, and in utter denial of common understanding and application and intent, right? Uh, in order to open the door for those who are ready to and would like to. I mean, it's not different than what's been done with the voting legislations, right? Voting, the enfranchisement legislations created, what is it? Manipulated so that folks can have the freedom to um, um,
Yeah,
reinstitutionalize
exactly.
these segregations, these oppressive structures, to re-erect the oppressive structures, etc. Um,
They've
that's it. Yeah,
opened a pathway, right? They've
open a
opened a
pathway.
pathway for those who, and we've already seen, right, with the Voting Rights Act, with that door open, that pathway open, those that were so ready and willing and rushing to take it. Yeah.
Couldn't wait. Chomping at
But that
the bit.
was the most recent thing, right? That was news that
Mm-hmm.
came out today, and
Mm-hmm.
it should have, again, why are we paying close attention? Close enough attention. I mean, whistles should have gone off. Anybody getting that news and what that's going to mean. And I can't remember the name of the show now because I haven't listened to it in so many years. But on Pacifica Radio in Los Angeles, KPFK, there was the disability show.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I always appreciated how the host would say, this is all of us, because everybody's going to be disabled at some point. That part of that's
Yes.
just part of aging, right? That's
Precisely.
just part of aging.
Precisely.
So
Yes.
this is all of us, right? This really, if you may be thinking, well, I don't have any physical disabilities, right? I don't have any intellectual disabilities. No. Yeah, you're gonna get old if you're lucky enough to live that long.
Yes.
And then see what kind of disabilities you do or don't have, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I am I have the sort of disability that, is so common in the world that it's unremarkable. And, I wear glasses, right?
Right.
Jerry and I used to joke, as we, both wear glasses. We used to joke about, dang, if we had lived at another time in another place, we might have been in trouble, right? with with our neither of us approaching blindness, but still, our less than 20/20 vision, right? It could be problematic at a particular moment in human history, and humans so reliant on vision in so many ways. But the other news of the day, because I know we said we were going to have a quick rant, so let's get to the next one. And that's just, we know what it is, right? And my mind immediately went to the Romans and the propagandistic uses of crucifixion, right? Public execution as a warning to anyone else, right, who might want to get out of line. And that's clearly the point of these outrageous sentencings, the sentences that have been handed down in Texas to these folks who were protesting ICE, these young people who were protesting ICE.
Young people.
And the point is to be cruel with all the language. I one of the quotes from the judge out there, their behavior was outrageous and you have to have order in society and all this. And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, and yet this president who pardoned everybody, right, that rioted at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, right? But we have to have order in society, so these people need to go to jail for protesting the abuses of ICE, which is being abusive in all of these various ways, right? But the whole point is this can be you, young person, old person, anybody. You want to challenge us? You can get shot in the face. You can get shot in the back. If you want to get in our way, we will send you to jail for the rest of your natural life.
Yes.
You want to get in the way. Certainly disproportionate sentences,
Yes.
even if they should have been found guilty of whatever, right?
Yes.
And even the level of the charges is, already part of that, right? So we know that, the uses of the prosecutor stacking charges, trying to find what's the word? Booking people on the most egregious charges they possibly can, and this is absolutely political theater and a warning to everybody else. You want to be in the streets coming after ICE, we're going to come after you using the legal system. And we also know there's precedent for it, right? The numbers of Panthers, Black Liberation Army folks, the number of American Indian movement folks, Puerto Rican liberation movement folks who were given 50-year sentences, life, double life sentences, right? Just these ridiculous kinds of, and truly ridiculous, right? Absurd types of sentences. And this is what this is in Texas. What, one person got 100 years, another person
Yes.
50 years, another person
70.
30 years, another
Yes.
person 70.
Yes.
And all of this, and all of these are going to be appealed, as they should be appealed. Texas, that also just sentenced Carmelo Anthony in the case where he was defending himself.
Yeah.
And again, in a state that is a stand your ground state, except you don't get to stand your ground if you are a young Black man. And you don't get to open carry if you are protesting ICE, even though Texas is also an open carry state. But you do get to carry an illegally obtained rifle across state lines to go shoot people at a Black Lives Matter rally and be exonerated or let off by the jury, right? So, this era we're in, they just continue to make the contradictions starker and starker, that they're getting to a point, and this is maybe the point they want, that people are going to lose all hope in the possibility of justice through nonviolent means, legal means. Right? They are pushing people to that point right now. So anyway, that was the other thing I wanted to rant about, because those are literally the things that came to mind when I read that story. How many folks are still in prison because of those types of sentences from the 60s and 70s, and there are still people in prison because of those types of sentences from the 60s and 70s. People who are then not receiving the necessary medical care they need as they become elders, having spent their entire lives going into these dungeons in their 20s, 30s, and being let out in your 70s when you have pancreatic cancer, and so you can go home to die.
Compassionate release.
So exactly, right? Right. And so here you go, here again, this next generation, under an administration, under a regime that revels in the cruelty of it, right? And a hardcore base, 30%, that revel in the cruelty. It is exactly what they want.
Yes.
So we just can't leave it unremarked, right? People pay attention. Don't be cowed by it, but pay attention to what they're doing. And the whole point is to keep you from getting back in the streets, to keep you from resisting ICE, to keep you from protecting your right to vote and all these other things, right? It's just one of the ways, one of the newest ways, or actually, I don't even want to call it, one of the many ways that they are crushing dissent in any way they can. Hallmark of fascist societies, hallmark of colonial societies, right? The
Yes.
repression of dissent.
Yes.
Anyway, that I didn't want to leave it unremarked because it matters, right? And people are paying attention. I know people are commenting on it. Other, folks on their YouTube channels, whatnot, are pointing out, are you paying attention?
Right. Right.
You do understand why they're doing this, right? There, and I mean, even the silly stuff, and it's silly, but it's also just as important, right? That they're arresting people at this reflecting pool,
right?
Just come take pictures,
just to arrest,
right? Just to arrest, right?
Yes.
Just so the dear leader isn't embarrassed by his incredible fuck up. I mean,
and it's, right.
Simply,
so there can be a show of force.
So there can be a show of force.
The all important show of force for the fascist society, for fascist society, right?
For fascist society, and for, yes,
the,
for the spectacle of the spectacle of authority.
Yes. And what is the epitome of state authority? The capacity to visit violence upon, the capacity to visit violence.
The legal capacity, right? That legal capacity, right? The monopoly on the legal use of violence.
Yes.
To this point, right? A reporter reporting on the pool puts his hand on a piece of the blue paint that is coming up, doesn't pull it out of the water, doesn't just holds it, it's floating. So just holds it still so the camera can get a look at it. So he's under investigation for vandalism. I saw an image, I think it was yesterday, a woman at the pool, young woman, just taking a picture of the pool, just looking at it. And it is what a park employee comes, jams her up, calls the police. Next thing she's, talking to the National Guard. She didn't even touch it. I mean, it's there on the camera. All she did is get down, squat so she could look at it. What is the lie that the leader comes up with? Well, it must be vandalism. Somebody vandalized it. Even though a month ago he bragged about how it couldn't be vandalized because it's such a strong whatever, you can't cut it with a knife. Now this week somebody's cutting it with knives and they're vandalizing it. So I saw a report actually very shortly before we came on. They are now seeking someone who they suspect of vandalism, right? You got to make the dear leader feel good. And just one more little thing, not even on the issue of the sentences in Texas or this eugenics memo. The fragility of this presidential ego, so petty about his name being taken off of the Kennedy Center that they're keeping it behind a tarp just so he doesn't have to suffer the embarrassment, or just to be petty because he lost in court and no, you don't get to put your name on it. So therefore, nobody gets to see John F. Kennedy's name on it. And of course, the excuse is we're renovating it, even though the board members of the board have said, yes, the Kennedy Center needs renovation, but it isn't necessary to close it during these renovations. There's no reason for people not to have access, other than the pettiness of the petulant tyrant currently in the White House. And maybe certainly not alone in being a horrible person serving as president of the United States. You know, I can throw out Andrew Jackson's name just as another example, right? But my gosh, it's just the level of petty is just it's enough to make one actually ill, right? Just
Truly.
actually ill. And you know, funny, the hottest country in the world, so respected now, except all these people are laughing at you, Donald Trump. You're getting clowned and you don't even know it. So, the whole making him sign the memorandum of understanding in Versailles, he didn't even know he was being played, you know, by Macron, right? But man, he didn't know he was being played by President Xi in China around the whole Thucydides trap thing. There's no there with Donald Trump, and that is not to cast aspersions on those who do have intellectual challenges. There's an emptiness to that man, or what he's full of is bile and cruelty. And you know, we know from reporting, both from his niece and other reporters, that this has been his life. Anyway, we've already gone. We were going to go half an hour, and now it's 9:17,
So
which is, you know, we got our rant out.
Got the rant on. Yes,
we did. You know, watch these folks, right? You know, just people. Let's not fall asleep. Whether you're comfortable calling it fascism or not, you want to call it authoritarianism, whatever you want to call it, it's an attack on all of our rights. It's an attack on democracy, if you believe in democracy, and it is an attack on the dignity of human beings. I mean, and there's so much more we could say, right? We didn't even talk about the new Supreme Court ruling that makes it okay to racially profile immigrants, removing the temporary protected status from Haitians and Syrians because they only want white refugees. And what was it, of the how many thousand? I think I heard the number today of more than 6,000 refugees who have been let into the country over the last year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
They have all been white South Africans, with the exception of maybe 6 people. But we know, right? They're the white birth panic, right? The white demographic panic. And this is all part of that, including this eugenics piece. I'm starting on another rant. I'm going to stop right there. Got anything you want to conclude with?
I do not. Short rants are good. They're purposeful.
Yes.
It helps.
Yes, it does. So then let me say, it is so good to have you back for the Joko conversation. Welcome back. So happy to see you. And we'll go ahead and say goodnight.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So I'll close the way I always close. And folks, you know, look at the state of the world. Look at what they're doing. These aren't just idle words, right? They're pushing us to this point. So as I always close, quoting Bob Marley from the song Revolution, revelation reveals the truth. It takes a revolution to make a solution. And the powers that are in control right now are making it inevitable as they're pushing people to the brink. With that, we say good night. Thank you, y'all. Do all the things we need you to do. Subscribe, like, so important for helping us with the algorithm, and please share. And by all means, leave a comment, right? Leave a comment. Maybe you want to add to the conversation. What did we leave out that we should have talked about? I was supposed to say all that before I quoted Bob Marley, but y'all get the point. Let's make a revolution, y'all. We'll see you next time.